Today is Thursday, October 17th, 2002. This is the beginning of an interview with Emil Galka, I said that wrong, at the YJCC in the Washington Township, New Jersey. Emil is 87 years old, having been born on January 30th, 1915. My name is Bonnie Zip. I am with the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and I'll be the interviewer. Emil?
Yes.
Can you tell us where you were living and when you received your draft notice and what that was like?
I was living on Cambridge Avenue in Garfield. And I was in shock when the draft notice came to my house because I considered myself, at that time, I assumed people that had wore eyeglasses were for-ref or whatever you would call them, and that they would never call me. And when it did come, I just flipped. I couldn't believe it, but that's what happened.
Were you married?
Yeah, no. I was single at the time, but we were in the baking business, and as a matter of fact, we were always in the baking business ever since I was a little boy. And the thought of leaving the business and closing it, folding it up so I could go, because the amount of work that would be left for my dad would be too much. So you work all your life at something, and it suddenly hits you, and I thought they would never call me, really, but they did. And I was very bitter about the whole thing.
How were your parents?
Well, they accepted it more than I did. They probably, there was an age factor in there. They came from Poland, both of them. And to them, whatever they, up to that time, whatever they hadn't achieved was a big deal to them. And it always was, as a matter of fact, till the day they died, years later.
Did they have to close the business then while you were gone?
They kept it open. They made an effort, I should say, to keep it going. But eventually it was too much, and they gave up.
What year was it? Remember?
No, let's see. I was 30, I think, so I'm 87 now. So you could kind of take off.
So once you were drafted, where did they send you for training?
Fort Dix. They drafted you to Fort Dix, but that is not where you got your training. Eventually, after Fort Dix, I wound up in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And that's where they trained you in the field artillery. Because of the open range, the amount of area they had to really shoot the cannons. And I stayed, I'm trying to think how long, I can't remember how much time we put in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And they shipped us back to Camp Dix. And from Camp Dix, which was a big shock to me when they told me that they're shipping us overseas.
That's it? They sent you right over. Did you know that, were you in the infantry?
No, field artillery.
Field artillery.
Well, we had trained in Oklahoma in field artillery. We were, I considered ourselves very good at it. So, although I wasn't part of the gun crew, I had a tractor, and the crew would sit in the tractor, and the gun was towed in the back and towed it into position. was the lead gun. And I discovered when we got overseas in real combat, that wasn't a smart position to be in. that was the number one that they picked off as you were moving, even to position, or even if you were there.
Back to basic training, what did you think of your training? Was it particularly difficult?
Difficult or not, I never liked it.
What did you do to get through it?
Worked at it, just did it. And eventually, I wound up in the motor pool instead of with the gun crew. Although I still drove the tractor, even overseas, when we pulled into position, I would drop the tractor, the gun crew off and the gun, and then scoot out to camouflage my vehicle. And from then on, they had all different chores for you to do. You might have been sent out for supplies, whether it was food supplies, or ammunition, or whatever they needed. That's about it I can think of.
So how long would you say you were in training before you were shipped overseas? Less than a year, 6 months?
I'm trying to figure it out. Well, I would say about 6 months.
And where were you sent then, from Fort Dix?
Right to France, Cherbourg, France.
Did you, how did they send you over? What, a boat?
Yes, that German ship that was scuttled at the beginning of the war, they sank it in the Gulf of Mexico, I think, where Mexico is. And the Americans brought it up, they refurbished it, and they used that as a transport going back, bringing people into Europe. And they would send, I don't know how many people, thousands of us on the ship.
Were you worried about being on a ship that had already sunk?
No, I quite frankly, I wasn't. And to my surprise, I found myself on deck in the ship in the front or in the back constantly, or even in the hull of the ship, all the way down where the turbines were turning. I was so curious, I wandered it from the ship from one plot to another, from the beginning to the end, sideways, no matter which way. I had to explore it all.
When on your accommodations on the ship, did you have bunks or did you have, what did you have?
We had bunks. Yeah, you used to just narrow aisles because they tried to get as many as they possibly could. And it was comfortable. It wasn't bad. Although I was the type that spent a lot of time wandering around the ship.
Sound like you're a seaman.
No, I was curious. I have till today, I have a curious nature, and I like to explore everything, and go into every little nook and corner just to know where I'm at.
Did you go in a convoy over?
Yes. Well, it was a convoy, but the ship could outrun the convoy, could outrun even the submarines if they. It was that fast of a ship.
Was it unusual being on a German ship? Did it have like?
No, because it was when they. It was all American crew. It wasn't German or anything. When the ship was scuttled, they salvaged it and they rebuilt it, and it was our ship really, and the crew was all American.
Now you landed in Cherbourg.
Cherbourg, France.
And at that point, it had been It had been captured?
It was liberated, shall we say.
Liberated. Okay.
And I thought, my gosh, what am I doing here? I'm not supposed to be here.
What was it like when you arrived?
Cold, miserably cold. And I was bitching because they told us not to take our boots along, our overshoes, and we left them here in the States. And when we got there, our feet got so wet, in the snow. The snow was about from 1 foot to 2 foot different spots that eventually had your shoes and feet wet, cold, miserable. Everybody was complaining, screaming, and hollering. Where are our boots?
Did they ever get you boots?
Yeah, well, eventually we had to go, once they shipped us out of Cherbourg, can't think of the next towns we went through. Eventually they caught up to us, and it was quite a happy time because once you put them on, you could walk in the snow. It made a big difference as long as your feet weren't wet.
Now, how far were you from the front?
At that time, or
in general? I mean,
right on the front?
You were the front.
Yeah.
So, but Cherbourg had been liberated when you were.
At that time, yeah, because and that was part of the First Army. They came through Radley's First Army, and we stayed. I was in Corps, so we were only attached. They only used us when they were in trouble, where they needed us. So we went with Bradley's First Army till we got to. It's on the Baltic coast. Nuremberg? No, not Nuremberg. Can't think of the name of the town, which he didn't need us anymore. And he said, because we were Corps, so they sort of, that's where that battle ended, and they gave us orders, and we went south to Frankfurt, and we caught up to Patton's army. And with Patton's army, we traveled till the end, till Pilsen, until the end of the war. It ended about the border of Czechoslovakia and Pilsen, if I could recall. That's where it ended for us.
Okay. So you had, how long was that till you got to Pilsen?
See, time, distance and time, I don't remember.
Well, months or a year or?
All I know is I put in 3 years in the Army. That's all I know. Other than that, when you want to break that time up, I can't. I would have to look at my discharge papers and see what battles I was in, because I think I have 5 or 6 battle stars. So I went right along. We were in battle with the First Army and then with the Third Army. So to get 6 battle stars, you had to be in quite a bit of shooting.
Now, were you still in the first gun?
What's that?
You said you were driving up the first.
Yeah, number gun? 1. Yes, all the way number 1. Was it? I'm trying to figure out why maybe not being too smart or being too daring, or I can't know what to attribute that to.
Did you have any R&R while you were there, any breaks?
Yes, at times, but not much. We got a day or so off. And
what'd you do?
Well, they just shipped you a little back where an area where they had some recreation and some food that you wouldn't get at the front, but never lasted long. Day or 2, 3, and even then, they wanted you right back at the front.
What kind of recreation is
And they would bring in singers, dancers, girls, and stuff. Yeah.
So you saw USO?
USOs, yeah.
Anybody big?
This escapes me now. They probably were at that time, but I can't really recall how big they were.
No, not Glenn Miller or anybody.
No. Oh yeah, they had them. They had them too. But I never got to go. I had to be at the front at the time. But people from our outfit did get to go.
Did you do anything special for luck?
For what?
For luck before the war? You know, before you go into battle?
Never. I'm not. No, I'm not the type of guy that believes in luck. It just goes. You do what you have to, and that's all.
But,
Well,
go ahead.
probably due to the fact that at home, you had no excuse in my house. You had, if someone gave you an order to do something at home, you did it. So when I got into the Army, I had no problem adjusting to commands or anything.
Well, I was going to ask you, what did you think of your commanders?
They were great. They were nice guys. I got to know them very well. Captain, and sergeants, and I always somehow was always in their presence because I used to drive the Jeep for the captain and the lieutenants, and if they had to go and say into some city or some mission, and they always called on me. And my friend from Lodi, Pat Valorano, was in charge of the, what would we say? What would you call it? All the trucks and everything were in, Motorpool was under his command. So Pat would say to me, Emil, look at the list. If you want to, you just take the trips you enjoy. He lived in Lodi, I lived in Garfield, and we got to know each other very well. So I was a happy boy.
Did you see some good stuff then when you took those trips?
Well, I always loved to travel. I still do till today. We've traveled everywhere, practically every country in Europe, me and my wife. So I'm a traveler, and any opportunity I jumped on, and I got to see everything I wanted anyway.
Did you get to meet any girls?
No. I had one girl back home that I wasn't married to, but I met her at the USO. I think I was in Fort Taunton or Tilden. Can't remember what fort. They're close together. And USO dance or something, you know. And I was kind of happy with her, shall I say. So much so that 57 years later, I'm still with her.
Oh, that's good. That you were faithful. That's
Yes,
good. So
yes.
we shouldn't ask you those things on camera anyway.
No, but even if you did, if there was, I would tell you. But no, I had a certain loyalty that I felt I had to live up to.
Can you tell me how it was going into battle? I mean, when you knew you were going into battle, who went in first and how was it set up? Where did you guys line up?
Well, like I said, we were Corps. We were always supporting, whether it was the First Army or the Third Army. And we never really, I feel I never, as a crew member, I never really knew in advance where we were going. And they never told us whether we're going to be supporting this mission or that mission or supporting a tanks division or whatever. We just went, boom, there you are, do it. And the commands came down. If they needed firepower, we just opened up and let them have it.
So it would all be already be established fighting, and you would pull in behind it.
Right, right. Because the infantry and the tanks would be up ahead. We were artillery, so we were pulling into whatever position they needed us to support them, assist them. So if the tanks were attacking and if they got pinned down, so they would call for our artillery. We send our shells, explosive shells, were 100 pounds each, so they could do a lot of damage when we sent them in.
Did you have any close calls as far as being shot at?
Well, let me tell you, like I went to sleep, that I recall, and for some unknown reason, I thought I was dreaming. The ground was shaking and the sounds were unbelievable. I never realized the amount of cannons or weapons or tanks or infantry that was we were in the area, and how many of them we were part of. When they opened up the fire, the ground shook, really shook, and I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it.
When you slept, was there fire at night? Did it shoot?
Shoot? Oh yes, anytime. They would. We were in a position, and the guns were zeroed in. I can't recall the nomenclature that they did, and the guns were all set up in our battalion, and they would. And I don't know how many others. Apparently, they're all zeroed in on the same, azimuth or whatever they call it. I can't remember the nomenclature of it anymore. And when they opened up, I could tell you, I think the name of the town was Landshut, Germany. It was on the other side of the Rhine River, or on this side. But anyway, I know we went up and there was resistance, so we had to back off, and they wanted to put down to cross this river. I think it was, and the pontoons engineers couldn't fire. It was too great. They couldn't get the bridge across because I was being the first vehicle trying to get through. It was so bad that we had to pull back from there. And then when we got ourselves into the backward position and they opened up and the ground was shaking, I couldn't believe it, that there was that much equipment there. And then, like I said, after we backed up, maybe in less than a half hour, we were back on the pontoon bridge, across the bridge, and through the town. All I could remember are the bulldozers making a path for us to get through this town. It was in shambles. There was nothing left in this town. And they plowed our way through so we can get through the whole town, because the town wasn't there anymore. It was gone.
How did you find the Europeans that you encountered, the French, the Germans? Or did you even encounter anyone?
No, not then. I didn't do much encountering, to tell you the truth. Civilians, no. I only remember one thing in reference to a civilian, German family. We were going through this town. The roads, well, it was pretty well banged up. And they were a very narrow path for us to get through. And the husband and wife, my vehicle got a little close to their fence, they were hollering and screaming that I damaged their fence a little. So I probably hollered back at them. Can't remember exactly why. But I didn't stop. We kept going. We had no time for stopping.
Do you have any particularly memorable experience as far as a battle that?
Well, 50 years went by or something, so trying to pinpoint something like that is very difficult now. Like I said, I've been in 5 or 6 battles that I have home stars, 6 battle stars, I think. I would have to sit there and meditate.
None was worse than any other?
No, just the worst one was the fact that I was sleeping and it woke me up. It shook the ground.
Well, tell me what it was like you're sleeping, where you slept. And
Well, I always made sure that, because once I pulled the gun in position with the crew and they got off and they took their ammunition, I would have to scoot and camouflage the vehicle, like I said. But I always had to make sure I went back and told the crew where I'm at, how they can get to it, if they need me in a hurry to come and pull the gun out. And I would tell them where I'd be sleeping. If I thought it was very risky, judging by the amount of cannon shots you heard, noises from the enemy, I would sleep under it. And if not, I would sleep on top. And they knew where I was all the time because I made sure before I went to sleep to tell them, because they had to sleep with the guns. I had to sleep with the vehicle.
when you camouflaged it, were you using the natural trees and whatnot?
Whatever, branches and whatever I could. But I would first try to pull the vehicle in as fast as I could. I couldn't do that because it had tracks like a tank. So I could pull it into bushes and stuff like that, and it wasn't too bad to camouflage it.
Did you camouflage with the other vehicles?
No, I only used mine. I only took care of mine. Everybody took care of their own.
Hit off another.
Yeah, they did. We scooted. Just everybody had to know when it was time to move to get out.
Yeah. How did you find that out then?
Well, they would send someone from the ground crew or from headquarters, and they'd come with a Jeep and let you know.
How long would it take to attach and unattach the gun?
Seconds. There was just like a hook. You dropped it in, back it up, drop the hook in, and off you went. Providing the gun was assembled again.
Yeah.
You know.
Because they took it apart, the crew?
Well, they would set it up because it had to be firm to shoot. And after your shooting, they assembled it. You would have arms to hold it, keep it steady and stuff.
Because it was on wheels, so you had to settle it. And they would pull in the arms?
Yeah.
Pull down, I guess,
Yeah.
the nozzle.
And then you would hook on the back. There was just a hook like that, and it matched up with yours. It clicked in. You're off.
Do you consider yourself a good driver?
All the time.
Defensive driver?
Yes, all my life.
What about food? What was that?
Well, I'll tell you, after 30 days of K ration, you're throwing up. K rations, that's them Cracker Jack boxes. After 30 days of that, I couldn't even look at it anymore.
What was normally contained in K rations?
Nothing, it was good food, don't get me wrong, just that it was over and over and over and over. The only thing in between that they were able to get us during combat, and it was pretty rough, coffee. They would bring in a vehicle, and they'd, well, it was big. It's like a refrigerator, and they would serve us coffee from there. And you'd send 5 guys to get coffee. They come back, 5 more guys go for coffee. And that was the worst part, was food to me.
Yeah.
You know, I love food till today.
Just for my sake, describe what's actually in a K ration.
Today I can't. I could remember there's crackers. There could be a can of what do they call Spam or something in it, and what else? See, what a memory.
Here's the question: what did you have to drink besides the coffee?
Oh, they try to get you water. You would fill your canteen up you had, and you always, wherever you could, you always have that full on your belt, so you have always carried it with you. I was more fortunate; I didn't have to carry it. I just put it in my vehicle. I did. I had it better than most of the people because of the vehicle, and the people on the gun crew, they're the ones that had the problem.
Did you ever pick up interesting war souvenirs, as it would be? Did you come across helmets, or did you?
There were lots of them, but you had no place to really carry them.
Something interesting you collected?
Yeah. Well, oh no, I wasn't gung-ho on souvenirs and that sort, but eventually, after the war, I had a pass to Paris, and I enjoyed that. And after the war, I wound up in Pilsen, Czechoslovakia. Finally, that was the town that, when the war ended for us, was in Pilsen, Czechoslovakia. And from there, a side village was called Domažlici, where they brought us and they assigned, well, you guys 2 will stay in this house, 3 will be in this house, 4. So they spread us in this village into these different homes. And there were other villages, like this was a northern village, the southern village from Prague. It was from Pilsen, I mean. We were all spread out in there after the war. And those were the nice times because we got to know the Czech people, the families that you were staying with. And you would visit your friend who's living down there, they would visit with you. And we would try to get them extra flour or rations of different kinds, so they would tell us what. And then they would bake a cake or something with it, you know. And of course, we also, in Sudetenland, we would, like 3 or 4 of us, people would go with our rifles and we'd pick the deer runs and would shoot a deer, bring it into town on a Jeep, and have 1 or 2 families come in. They would clean up the deer and everything, and then we used to hang it out to freeze because it was pretty cold there. And then they would take it home and prepare meals and invite us in to have, enjoy the...
Did they treat you like guests?
Yes, yes, they did.
Do you remember the name of your family?
No. Names don't stick with me because I don't concentrate on them. Never did.
Did they have children?
Yeah, yes, they had. Yeah, like 9 times out of 10, the officers would go through these buildings and they'd see what the condition is and what one fellow would be here, 2 could be there, or 3 somewhere else, you know. That was during the winter months. In the summer, you're out, your sleeping bag.
On your road. These families, I just forgot what I was going to ask. How did you communicate with them?
I'm Polish. I speak Polish.
Oh.
That there's a difference. There's like a different, but after a while you pick it up and you speak it as though you knew. As a matter of fact, I recall very clearly when I got back from the war and I come home, I was speaking Czech all the time because I was in Czechoslovakia. And when we got home, the first thing I greet my mother and I'm talking to her in Czech. She's looking at me. What's happened to you? Then I realized I should be talking Polish instead of Czech.
Were you anywhere near where your family came from?
I wanted to go there, and close enough too from Czech, because in Poland, when my family come, they come from the southern part, and it was close to the Czech border, and it wasn't too far away. But the Russians wouldn't let us. I had passes and everything to go see the village where they came from. I got to where the Russians were holding it. No, I showed passes and everything. I spoke to them in Polish, you know, trying to, and they speak Russian, I speak Polish, trying to get them to understand, look, that's my family, I want it. I may never get a chance to be here. Who knows what could happen? And they wouldn't. They just was, I don't know, I guess they didn't want the Americans to know anything about the Russians. At the front, yes, but not into it.
And was your family strongly affected by were they deported to concentration camps? Do you know? Was everybody okay in Poland? Did you find out?
No, I got to tell you, I know one thing, that after the war, my mother, who had land in Poland, had acres, because she was the only one in the family, so that everything was in her name. The family gave it all to her. And we had a lot of land, so my mother says there were 5 of us, she says, got us around, she says, listen, I feel I have to do something because I'm paying taxes on this land, and if you kids want it, let me know, I'll continue paying it. But if you decide, or you should not want to go to Poland, I will just give it to a cousin of hers. She was married, they had a couple of children. Says, I'll give it to them. They're using the land now anyway, but I'll give them the title to the land. So none of us in the family decided we didn't want it. So my mother gets the paperwork. Took quite a bit of time. The legal attorneys writing back and forth, but they finally gave the land. And they thanked us very nicely. And about 6 months after my mother gave the land to her cousins, she didn't hear a word from them, so she kept writing letters, no answers. Finally, one of the neighbors from that village said, you should stop writing because the mail is accumulating here. And they're not here anymore, that they sold the land that you gave them and the cabin and everything, you know, the home, and they took off. We don't even know where they are. Until today, we didn't hear a word from the people, the cousins that got the land from my mother.
Now, when did they get the land from her? Was it recent?
No, 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago.
Before, during the war, or?
It was right after
After.
the war. It was right after the war that she gave up the land. No, yeah, maybe. Yeah, it was after the war.
What kind of gear did you carry with you? Like, did you have your bedroll and your gun, and what are all the things?
I had them, but I had this tractor with the crew, so I had, it was all mine.
Yeah.
I had two in the back of the tractor. There were, what would you say, like foot lockers, two of them, that you could lock up, one on this side, one on this side from the back, big like that. And I could put anything and everything in there, and it never got wet because it was sealed. So I would pick up things that I found along the road, because we would stop occasionally and you'd find things. Or in the city, we would go looking around, and everything I wanted went in this locker or in that locker. I had two big lockers. So I picked up paintings. They paint on wood, you know. They're about 12 inches like that. Got about 8 or 10 of them, different times, you know. And they were there, they were in here. And many other little objects and stuff that was packed in there. I was lucky.
Do you have them today?
Yeah, sure, they're beautiful. Oh yeah, they're wood. They're painted on wood. And they're gorgeous. I have two that are about 150 years old, maybe 200 years old, two of them.
Did you buy them?
Yeah, well, after the war, in Pilsen, they used to have these, they would bring all the objects they wanted to sell. I'm trying to think a good name they have for it.
The black market, or?
No, just objects they bring that they wanted to raise money because they were broke after the war. So,
like a flea market?
A flea market, that's the word I was looking for. So they would lay out all the merchandise, different people. Each one had their own little square, whatever they wanted to sell. So I love art, so I used to look if I saw, and none of them were bigger than maybe 12 by 12, yeah, something like that. No big ones, all small. I don't like canvas painting, so I love these things, and whenever I spotted one, I try to buy it.
Do you remember how much they cost?
The most I think I ever paid was $5. That's because I wanted it, but I could have held out, but well, I figure $5 don't mean anything. We had money and we couldn't spend it on anything. They had nothing for us to buy, really. Yeah, I got about 8 or 9, 10 maybe.
How were you paid? How much?
Well, I can't remember that.
And what'd you do with the money, besides the paintings?
Just put it in a savings account, because I'm not the kind of fellow that goes out drinking or stuff, you know, so I had no money to spend for that kind of stuff. I always bought material things that I could use, otherwise it remained in the safety part, not safety. In the Army, you could put it into a savings account. You know, if you want the money, you gave it to the savings account. So I accumulated quite a bit of money that way.
Did you use that money to buy a house, or?
No, I used it to get married.
Pay for the wedding, huh?
No, we didn't have a wedding. We took off.
Huh?
Me and my wife. Well, we didn't want to have a problem. I'm a Catholic. My wife is Jewish. And not that I'm a non-believer anyway. So we didn't want to create a problem between, have a wedding, a rabbi. So we took off, wound up in Princeton, and just as a peace, we got to the city hall. We had the papers, and they said, "Sorry, we can't marry you." Why? Well, Professor Cheeseborough is having classes. He's teaching in Princeton.
Yeah, Princeton
University. And if you want, you will have to wait until 12 o'clock. So, what are we going to do? We decided to wait. So we would walk out, walk around, walk here and there. Eventually time came. So we walked into the municipal building, and he went through the ceremony and checked the papers and everything, and we were married us. And to our surprise, as he says, "Kiss the bride," the professor, so he kissed the bride. Next thing you know, all the office people that were around in the area were walking out and they're throwing rice. It was such a surprise to us. We were flabbergasted that they would do it, It was nice. Yeah, it sure is.
Tell me about then when you were discharged.
I'm trying to think.
You were in Domaine Lease, or?
No, when I was discharged, they had us here in Fort Dix already. I think we were back.
Well, tell us about coming back after you're in Domaine.
Trying to think of what I could tell you. Really, most of the ones that had enough points were being shipped to the Pacific, and we were going through the process from ETO to the Pacific, but they would ship you here Fort Dix or other forts here locally, and from there they would ship you to the Pacific. I remained in Europe, so I was part of the Army of Occupation after the war ended. So that's, like I said, we shipped us to Czechoslovakia, Pilsen, and we, from Pilsen to Prague, we would sort of guard the area that nothing should, till things got calm. It was about a year that we spent in the Army of Occupation.
What were your duties in the occupation then?
We would set up patrols at night in different villages, so there should be no uproars of any kind, we'll put it that way. That's about it. It wasn't too bad. It was good.
How were the people at that point?
They were all right. There was no problem with the people. They were afraid, really. They knew the American Army was the power. They accepted it because there was no if, buts, or and who's in charge.
any happy to be occupied at that point?
I wouldn't say they were happy, but they accepted the fact that we did. Well, in Czechoslovakia, they were in our favor more, but in Germany, when I was in Germany, there was a little, you had to be careful because they had no use for you. You were an American soldier and you defeated us. That's about it. That's the life of a soldier, combatant.
Wow. So then you came back to Fort Dix, and when were you discharged?
I really don't remember the date. If I were, I would have looked them up for you. No, I have them, but I'm not prepared for dates. I'm not a great one for remembering dates anyway. I remember things that happened, but not dates.
And then from when you were discharged, you went back to your family? Did they know you were coming?
To my surprise, they did. I wasn't aware of it. But there were notices in the newspapers, I think, that they saw that this outfit or that outfit is coming and is going to be discharged.
Did you get any parades? Were you in any parades, or did you get any parades?
Parade?
Yeah.
I'm not a parade man. Never. Even if they did, I never did go for it.
What was your rank when you were discharged?
Tea corporal.
When you received your stars, when were they presented to you?
Let me see. They weren't presented in that fashion that you think.
Yeah.
Just recently, after 50 years that went by, we
Jim
see.
from Maintenance Call 326. Jim from Maintenance Call 326.
In a paper that they were going to give out, not the awards, they were given out. First they gave you like ribbons.
Uh-huh.
So I don't want to bother. So my daughter, who read it in the paper, took my discharge paper, went there and got them. But not the medals yet, because they were just, I don't know, little ribbons or something. And some time went by, not much, 3, 4, 5 months, just recent. She came in, took them down, and took off, and brought back, and she framed them this time. Come back, walked into the house with the medals of the battles, you know. She says, hang this on the wall, Dad, and it's mine. I says, you could have it.
When did you use the GI Bill after the war? When you came back to get education, what did you do after the war?
No, I went right into business because when I left, we were in a baking business. So after the war, we didn't have the baking business, but my dad was still working in the baker shops. The Jewish rye bread and Kaiser rolls and all that, you know. And I still could make good Kaiser rolls still today. And we eventually decided to go back. After a couple of months, I think I took a little sabbatical, if you will. And let's see, I was in the baking business after that. I got married. Yeah, and we were in the baking business. When I got married, we decided to give up because my dad was getting on in years, so we closed the business up. And I took a job, I'm trying to think what I did, engraving business. I was a sketch maker, where we were sketching designs for ladies' dresses that they wear even like today, they do. And we would, if the object was small, we would enlarge it to the dimensions that were printable. So we had, I did that for quite some time.
Did you think this was the war to end all wars?
Never even entered my mind. I don't believe in that. Human nature being what it is, hey, there's going to be wars. People are going to die.
Did you keep in touch with anyone after the war?
Yeah, for some time, two of my buddies, but you know, if they're in Nebraska and somewhere else, Arizona, eventually you drift away from it because I went into business, my own business again, and I was selling confectionaries and tobacco, cigarettes, and supplying a wholesale, supplying the retailers in the area. That's the business I went into. And I had to devote so much time to the business that eventually well, I'll write them next week. Well, I'll write them next week, and it petered out.
Did you join the VFW?
I still am a member of the VFW.
Do you do
Yes.
anything?
What's that?
Are you active there?
No, no. I go occasionally, but I'm not the joining type. You know, I don't get satisfaction out of that at all. Part of, that's all. Moral support.
And important for your family. Tell me, you had your wife then, you got married, how many children, grandchildren?
I had three, 2 boys and a girl. Grandchildren, 1, 2, 3, 4. I got to remember, can you imagine? 5.
Well, thank you very much. Wonderful interview. And we ran out of tape.
No problem.
So I had to end here.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
I will give you a copy of this to enjoy for yourself and your family.
Yeah, Nathan said he's showing it.
Probably not. No, just the fact that, which I said, I tell you, that I was in shock when they called me.
I love that.
I was, because I thought I was a 4F, you know. I find myself in Germany, the shore of France. Oh, no. And of course, I went through the whole battle, all the battles. Like I said, I got 6 battle stars all the way through. Yeah. And, you know, some of it was rough, some of it wasn't, you know. It's hard to pinpoint it. Like with Bradley, it was a certain way. With Patton, there was a certain type of combat we were in. Between us, you know, core. Hey, we need you here. Oh, no, we need you here. No, we need you here. Go to the 39th. Go to the 1st Army, you know. Always supporting somebody.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
No problem. Yeah.
So, it'll be nice to
Do you know that you were the first person of all the interviews who actually drank the water?
have.